Guinness Book of World Records is funny because it's like, I mean, you have everybody from growing long nails to all these other things, but it's like the people that have those records at that moment, they led their lives so that they could get that.
Yeah.
They had the values. Why did nobody else get it? Well, because maybe that wasn't in their plan, or maybe they just didn't have the ability to change what the objective was, the world record, to be able to do a fit to their skill set.
This is Sparta! Welcome back to Spartan Leadership. I'm your host, Josh Kosnick, and you'll have to bear with me today. I got a little bit of a head cold from my 5-year-old. So if you hear me clearing my throat or chugging coffee to help get along this interview, bear with us all. But I'm excited today because I got my buddy Rob, active firefighter of 20 years, veteran of the U.S. Air Force, medic, triathlete, inspirational keynote speaker, podcast host, father, husband, PTSD survivor, and Guinness Book of World Record holder. So try and say that 3 times fast.
I'm tired with you just saying it once.
So we got to get it all in there. So please join me in welcoming the founder and owner of Forged in the Fires Mindset Performance Coaching, Robert Fireman Rob Verhelst. Welcome to the show, brother.
Thanks, brother. It's so good to be here. It's funny because nobody knows my real name. So Fireman Rob is usually all that people say. And so like, oh yeah, that makes sense. You say my real name and they're like,
wait, he's Robert?
Who's that?
That's great to be here. Someone I know that is someone calling for a sales call is when Joshua is busted out.
Oh, so you don't feel like you're in trouble or anything?
Yeah, no, I did. The only people that call me Joshua are either my mother or my wife, and I know I'm usually in trouble. And if the middle name comes out, then you know
you might as well start running.
That's right. That's absolutely right. I think every probably son. Maybe, I don't know if it's done as much to daughters. When I yell at my daughters, it's their first name. I think it's more of a son thing. Joshua Steven.
It is. When you got the whole name, that was always my biggest thing. When I got the whole name, like literally I would be finding a way out. Usually it was when I was in the basement at my house because I did something wrong upstairs and there was no way out.
Well, good. Let's get into this because I'm excited to talk with Fireman Rob today. We'll leave out the formal Robert.
I like that.
But let's work through some of the introduction because I know everyone listening has some questions based on all those little, names that I use to describe you. But let's start with Guinness Book of World Record holder. Mm-hmm. What did you do to leave your mark in that book?
So in 2015, so I went for the Guinness World Record for the most number of Ironman 70.3. So that's a half distance Ironman. So it's a 1.2 mile swim, a 56-mile bike, and then a leisurely, 13.1 mile run, a walk in my case. But I do it all in full fire gear. And so I wanted to get a different world record for doing the most in fire gear for the run portion. But obviously the people in England didn't find that to be different. And so I had to go after the one that was existing. It was 21. With a guy that had done it in spandex, the things that you can see everything with. Yeah. And so I went out and
normal triathlete gear.
Yeah, normal triathlete gear. It's And so I went out that year. I had like 26 on my docket, but there was ones that canceled and ones that I just couldn't finish. And I ended up actually getting the Guinness World Record that year in November. I broke it in, I believe it was Arizona. I got 22 in Arizona and then I just did 23. And so it was a adventure. I was still working as a firefighter, still being a parent, which is a hard job in itself, still dealing with my mental health issues that at that time I had no idea how bad it was. And then going and traveling. I mean, it was a few thousand miles of flying and traveling. I went all over the globe that year and did races, and it was fun. It was a lot of fun, and the impact definitely I saw from not the piece of paper that hangs on my wall that I have to dust, but from being in all those different areas.
Well, that's cool. I'm sure the travel left a mark on you as well.
Oh, yeah.
Obviously, the lessons that come with it. I just think about, and for most people that don't, I think a lot of people don't know this, but you weren't getting paid to do these, and you're not getting paid to set the world record.
No, you don't.
And Jenna, my wife's first cousin was a professional Ironman, and he finished top 5 here in Madison. In traditional,
not in the cool spandex.
So we'd chase him around for just shy of 9 hours and stuff of that nature. He had good times, but that's still an all-day event, and he's traveling the world, and even at the highest level, finishing top 5 at Madison, which isn't necessarily the toughest one, but it is the most spectated one.
Yes, it is.
So I just think that he wasn't making money on that. He had sponsorship dollars essentially to
pay what you need. Yeah, exactly.
To get the bike, to get the gear, to pay for training, food, stuff of that nature. So this isn't a lucrative event. This is a passion event, right?
By far. It's expensive. It's one of those things where a lot of people will do it as their one-off. Like they'll do a full Ironman as their journey, whether they survive cancer or they lost 250 pounds, or you have people like when the Sandy Hook school shooting, the dad did Kona that year, and so there's a lot of different things, and the coolest part about it is everybody has a story. Not everybody gets to tell their story like I was able to do, but everybody has a story that does it. And like you said, you did Tough Mudder. It's like we all do those things and push ourselves for a reason. And like you're talking about for leadership, that's why we do it, because we want to show people that not just through my words that, hey, I'm tough, or hey, I can survive mental health issues, but through my actions, I can continue to show people what's possible in their lives.
You're absolutely right there. And even through my 75 hard run, I've counted now 44 people that I've personally inspired to try 75 hard.
Yeah.
And so you think about that, even Alicia, who's producing the podcast show outside these walls today, she's in her run right now, and she's told me 4 people have signed up because of her. So you think about the ripple effect.
It's amazing.
That just continues to happen as you inspire people through your actions of just even exercising.
Right.
Not even in your everyday life of leadership or your position as a job or as a parent, but just in exercising, doing something above and beyond the normal.
Right. It's so true. And I think the hardest thing, so I did that world record, and then my dad passed in 2019 of cancer, and we had the COVID, and I had to live in the basement, all this other stuff that happened. And so I gained weight. And so it's like, people always look at you like, oh, you have a Guinness World Record. And, they look at you, oh, you're always going to be in shape. It's like, no, that piece of paper doesn't keep me in shape.
Although that'd be nice.
Yeah. Well, it'd be great. Just rub the piece of paper on you and you're golden, lose 20 pounds. But it's a constant journey, and that's what's so hard, especially being a speaker and all that stuff, is leading by what you do, not by what you say.
Yes.
And I find myself, I fail a lot, and a lot of people are not able to say that, but I'm totally willing to say that, because that's how we as leaders develop other leaders, and not just followers.
Yep. And just like our kids, I think a lot of parents get told this, but the kids are going to follow your actions far more than your words. And it's not, we don't outgrow that.
No.
I still want to see someone that's done it, or what I'm about to do, and talk to them about their experiences and where I'm going to experience my own challenges and pitfalls as I go down that journey, versus talking to someone that just has seen other people do it.
Yeah. So true. It's kind of like, I don't know if you've ever put together like an IKEA desk or
unfortunately
anything.
When we owned the Anytime Fitness downtown Madison, we did some cubicle shelving and stuff of that nature.
I can see the scars on your hands.
I don't know if it's my hands, my emotions, or my mind, but yes, go on with your analogy.
It's the same kind of concept. It's like you have to see it being done. A lot of things as guys, we think we can put together without looking at the instructions. But realistically, that aspect of your life of leadership and of being able to move forward is like an IKEA couch. You have to look at the instruction. You have to see how it was done before, so that maybe you could put it together a little better, but you have to see how it was done before, or else you will be so, like you were saying, mentally anguished if you don't follow those instructions.
Yeah. And probably a lot of swear words that will be saved.
Miscellaneous ones.
But you're right, because I think about that as how many toys we've put together as fathers.
Right.
And whether it was this supposedly little easy kitchen that my wife got off of Amazon. This wasn't even an IKEA thing. It took me 5.5 hours. And probably multiple bourbons, but seeing the picture of the completion thing, you can look at your pieces and be like, okay, no, that doesn't look right.
Right.
I probably better back off that, redo it to make sure that it does look right before I get this all together and realize I screwed the whole thing up.
Oh, yeah. And that's, that's a perfect analogy for life. When you look at people who are going through life and, experiences in life are bread and butter of creating who we are. If you don't reach outside of yourself, if you don't go and try something maybe different that nobody else thinks that, when I said I'm going to go for the Guinness World Record and run in full fire gear, how many people were like, oh yeah, that sounds awesome. No, most people are like, wow, you're really stupid. Yeah. And I said, I wasn't. Yeah. The first race that I did in Racine, when I tried it out. So I did, Ironman Wisconsin was the first one that I did in full fire gear, but Racine, I wanted to try it out in gear. It's 110 with the heat index that day. And I know that the rooster said that was bad.
The rooster said
yeah, he's
impressive.
like, you gotta be kidding me. But the race director was a good friend of mine. And I told him, I said, hey, Ryan, this is my plan. I'm going to, do the swim normal, do the bike normal, and then I'm going to get my fire gear and I'm going to run 13.1. He said, Rob, that's great. He's like, I'm just going to let you know this. He's like, if you die, I will revive you and kill you again. I was like, but thanks, buddy. Yeah, exactly. Thanks for the vote of confidence. I'm ready to go. But that's kind of that philosophy of our journeys and our experiences have to reach outside of other people's expectations or their limited beliefs and what they can do.
Yeah, absolutely. That's so good. So you did every single one of those in fire gear?
Yeah, I've never done. The only one I've ever done in non-fire gear was in 2010. And I just did it because I'd never done an Ironman before. And I was like, let's try this out. But ever since then, I've done 24 fulls and 29 halves in full fire gear.
Man. So when you set out, what was your mission? What was your impetus and this passion to go, you know what? I'm not only going to be crazy and doing it, because I already told you before we talked that I have no ambition to do an Ironman at this point in my life. I was built for speed. But to go a step further and go, I'm not only going to do a half or a full, I'm actually going to throw my full fire gear on, which weighs how many pounds?
It's about 60. 60 pounds is usually what it's about.
So you're a 200 plus pound man. We don't have to give exact weight, but I know you're, I'm 200 plus pounds.
I did Kona at 215 pounds.
Plus 60.
Plus 60. Yeah. So 275, I'm rolling down the street. Man. And I usually look like when I go in the transition for in the morning and put your bike in, I look like I ate two of the triathletes on the way in. I am not a prototypical triathlete. Yeah. They look at me and like, yes, can you give me some water? No, yeah. I'm like, no, I'm racing.
No, that's it's fascinating because you're right. Jenna's cousin, who was professional, very lean.
Yeah.
Lean muscle. They weren't built like you and I were built.
No, they're not built. No, we're like the wind drags. So you get on the bike. My coach always said, Robbie, you look like the bear at the circus when you're on the bike. I was like, hey, that's beautiful. Thanks.
So what was the passion right then and there to go, okay, I'm going to not only do this crazy thing that most people are never going to do themselves without fire gear on. What started it?
So Ironman Wisconsin that year landed, the first time I ever did it was, it landed on September 11th, the 10th anniversary of September 11th.
I remember that.
And I did perform search and recovery at September 11th. I was called out there on a rescue team that I was a part of, and 23 years old. I really didn't have any clue what was going on in my life at that time.
Was that because of your military or because you're a firefighter?
Firefighter. Yeah. Okay. So firefighter and the rescue team I'd signed up for and been a part of. And so when this 10th anniversary came around, I was like, God, I want to do something that really impacts people. I don't want to talk about it, and because for many years I was lost. I was extremely lost. And so I was like, you know what, let's do it in full fire gear for the run portion. I mean, why not? And so the impetus was to do that Ironman just to kind of honor those who had lost their lives, but at the same time, give anybody in that day the understanding of the pain and the passion that everybody that worked on the pile, that worked close to the pile, that donated, that anybody that was part of that day, to continue to move forward with a strength that was not seen before, since like a Pearl Harbor.
Yeah.
And so that's what it started as, is that honoring that day and honoring those people and kind of giving people just a motivation and inspiration. And it transitioned into something that I never really thought it would, is that I figured out that the pain that I was going through on the run portions was helping me to cope with the mental health issues that I have still today.
I was going to ask that, how much exercise has helped with that?
It's crazy. And the pain really let me know that I was still alive.
Yeah.
There was a lot of pain. I mean, I've never really, it's hard to equate it to anything, you know, but just carrying that load of fire gear, but then also carrying that I can't be angry during that, because I'm supposed to be presenting myself as an inspiration, as a motivation. So when somebody comes up and asks if they can walk with me, you know, I always walked and listened to their stories. I heard some of the greatest stories in the world, but I figured out that it was more than just about helping others. It was helping me as well. Mm-hmm. And that's, you know, it gave me a great insight as to, you know, when it's not selfish to help yourself or do things to help yourself to be better person, and also to survive life. We have a lot of things that we go through, depression, anxiety, all these things. And it's okay to help yourself at some point in your life.
Mm-hmm. So there's so much there that people could glean on. I think about some of the times that I've gone through painful things, and I've leaned on more painful things to get me through it.
Totally.
So I'm thinking about, you know, you're going through pain and anguish trying to get through this first one with, you know, 60 plus pounds on your back. How much did you lean into your internal pain to get you through that?
Oh, it was huge. It was huge. And at that time, I didn't really realize how deep my pain was. You know, I was using alcohol as a coping mechanism. I was using, you know, just stupid shit for a coping mechanism to get through, not knowing that was what I was doing. Mm-hmm. And so when I was out on that course and the pain, I would literally be fighting with my internal voice to take one more step, to go through one of the races I did in Naples. I had blisters like that big, 2 of them on the bottom of my feet. And I had 13 miles left.
Oh, jeez.
And that internal fight that I had with myself helps me to this day. And I can't tell you how important, it's so valuable what I did in those moments to be able to persevere through that freaking pain and finish. And when I finished, it was funny because it was not the finish line or the medal or the accolades or anything like that. It was that I was able to push myself through something that there's times I thought I would like pass out and die. Like there's times that I blacked out walking. But that I finished that task for myself to be able to get myself to be better.
That's so, excuse me. That's so important for everyone to key in on what he just talked about there, because Goggins talks about the cookie jar.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I love that analogy. And for anyone that hasn't read the book, Can't Hurt Me. First of all, I would read it. I would not just read it, I would listen to it, because Goggins has a way of words and passion.
Many words.
There's swear words. We'll get that out there right now. But how he speaks about himself and the lessons and whatnot that he's gotten through, the pain that he's gotten through, mm-hmm. some of the things that you and I will never experience, some of the things that you have experienced on some of these ultra things, long distance things, but stuff I don't plan to experience at this point. So
you'll just read about it.
Yeah, I'll live vicariously through you guys. But digging into that cookie jars, you guys are, all of us actually, regardless if you've done something as seemingly crazy as Fireman Rob or Goggins doing ultra races, or even simply doing a Tough Mudder, or simply living through the death of a loved one. Oh. We are all undefeated. Right. On our worst days. Yeah. Every day we wake up, we're undefeated in beating whatever challenge was in our way that day. So digging into those cookie jars to be like, you know what? When I finished that race where I had blisters the size of $50 on my feet, this situation in front of me today, I can beat that.
it's so right. It's funny. I look at your hat and the Sparta, where he has the three, where he got,
we got the sword.
So
that's where that came from on the logo, is that movie.
Exactly what you said. And exactly what you just said. It's like those three marks from the knives. That is a reminder that I'm still here for a reason.
Yeah.
That I'm still fighting every single day for a reason. It didn't get to me. It scarred me, but it didn't get to me. Mm-hmm. And I think that's, I get to talk about to first responders about mental health now. And I think about that from that perspective, is there's so many scars in that respect that they're constantly dealing with. And it's everybody, every day. And it doesn't have to be a huge thing that people go through. It doesn't have to be getting your helmet cut by a huge sword, but it's little things. It's people have to look at their lives and look at them as a person and say, hey, this is a big moment for me. Even though, Rob or Josh may not think it's a huge moment. It's a big moment for me. So I need to take that into account when I succeed or when I fail. How do I get back to that podium?
Well, we all will have trials and tribulations in our life. Yeah. And to compare to others, comparison is the thief of joy, we often hear.
That's good.
Right. So we hear that often, and it's true in so many different ways, right? Trying to compare to someone's grief or trauma or anything of that nature is a fool's errand.
Yeah.
Like you're going through enough on your own as a human, or this human condition is not an easy one, right? No. If we were animals, like the rooster that's been crowing this morning, all on its mind is eating.
Yeah.
Eating, pooping, and staying alive.
Yeah. Well, he may not be alive long.
Yeah. We'll see. we plan to have the chickens around a while, but there are predators, right? So it's staying alive, it's eating. I mean, they're not thinking about any other emotions.
No, it's not complicated. And I always love that dog. I don't know if you've ever seen the dog meme where it has the human and the dog sitting on a log, and it says, you ever wonder why dogs have happy lives? And you have the human, they have all these bubbles up there, and it has work, travel, family, all this other stuff that he's thinking about. And the dog, all he's thinking about is that moment sitting there with his human.
Yeah.
And it's so true. And I know everybody's like, oh yeah, but I got work, I got all this other stuff. But when your overriding thought is being in that moment, you can have all those other thoughts. It's going to happen. I mean, that'd be dumb to think that we can't have all those other thoughts. But if you're thinking about it, like right here, right now, we're in this moment right now talking about this podcast. There's a lot of other things that are going on. There's a lot of other things in our lives. But if you're in that moment, if you can take that time and be in that moment, it's going to help you so much in the future with the experiences. And like you're saying, just to be able to be that person that you are. And
giving your attention to the people that are around you. Because that's where it's like, be where your feet are. I think it's much more than that, because I've heard that often as well.
Yeah.
Especially from leadership coaches, that's become a popular phrase, speakers, whatnot. But it's more than that, because you can be where your feet are and not be present here.
Right.
And especially with your kids, and my 8, soon to be 9-year-old is my little firecracker, but she's also daddy's girl.
Yeah.
And if I ever am not paying attention to her and she wants my attention, let's say I was doing a text or something, she'll go like this with my phone and push it down. But like, Donja, how many times have you wished you could do that to someone that you were interacting with?
Oh yeah.
It's like, hey, no, I'm talking to you. Put your fucking phone down.
Yeah. Why? Yeah, it's so true. And I took a picture the other day. It was funny at the firehouse. 4 of the guys were sitting around the table, and they had their phones on. I was like, what are you guys texting each other?
Or you see a family at dinner and they're all on their phone.
Yeah.
And they're not talking to each other.
It's crazy.
And that's really unfortunate. So, and by the way, I've been guilty of that. I've looked around my own
completely.
Table. So I'm not trying to sit here from some high horse. I'm saying, like, look, us as humans need to fix that.
Oh, by far. We
need to engage with each other, and we're all going through shit.
Yep.
So like you said, with the mental health that you're helping first responders with, which is amazing. And I know we got some questions on that, but so you're helping corporate clients, high school students. You're on a mission to ignite the powers of elite mindsets nationwide. So introduce the audience to Forged in the Fire's performance mindset coaching and the 7 catalysts.
So the 7 catalysts, so I really kind of looked at my, experiences, my life, and where I was going. And I had to think about, okay, what makes me me? What makes me tick? And so I came up with the 7 catalysts, and it's passion, ownership, decisions, emotional control, faith, resilience, and then faith over fear, and then mental strength. And how they all tie together is, if you can find your purpose and passion, you can start to take ownership of the little things in your life, make the decisions that move you forward, not backwards, while having this emotional control to be able to not react to other people's opinions or decisions or anything like that, which keeps you resilient to the mindset that I have the faith in myself over the fears that surround me, which inevitably leads you to have mental strength that can bring you to that potential that you have in life. And so what I do with that mindset coaching is I take each of those components and have individuals dive into their life really in each of those components, because of purpose and passion. I know for many years it was a soft topic.
Yeah.
And it always made me laugh, because when I started speaking, everybody's like, oh, you can't talk on purpose and passion. I was like, okay, well, you may not be able to talk on it, but I will talk on it because it's so important. And it's so funny now, it's like front and center in most corporations, and our passion is this.
Yeah.
It's like,
our purpose statement is this.
Exactly. And it's so valuable to have that. But at the same point, everybody always thinks like they have to have a purpose statement. But really, as we go through life, as things change, you have to be able to adapt your purpose and passion and reflect on that. Mm-hmm. I think I got it. No. But that's
already.
I know it's already. But it's such a huge thing. And all those things individually, the 7 catalysts individually, are valuable. But when you tie them together, it just makes a human more whole, and it makes you more authentic.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. 100% agree. And I've talked about this often with someone's why, yes, which is very correlated to their passion or purpose.
Oh, by far, yeah.
Tying into that why, like, why were you going to put that fire suit on?
Yeah.
Why the hell were you going to finish when you're in utter pain?
Yeah.
Right. So it's connecting. All those questions are going to come through your head as you're going through that experience.
Right.
Why are you going to wake up in the morning? Why are you going to get dressed for work? Why are you going to go to a job that you may love, may hate?
Right.
But why are you doing what you're doing? If it's just to put food on the table for your family, that's a very clear why.
Right. But is it a sustainable why?
Maybe not. And that's where the reflection comes in, right?
Right. And that's where the reflection comes. And that's where the ownership comes in, because you think when we own our decisions, our words, it's something that we're bought into. You know, it's something that we have to. So if I have a passion of going to work and it's to feed my family, right? It's a hard passion to sustain, because, okay, am I willing to own if I make a mistake at work? Probably not, because I want to keep my job. Right. Mm. And then what decisions am I going to make throughout this time to be able to sustain that I'm getting money for my family? The biggest one that I always say is like the resilience and the faith over fear. If I feel like I'm going to lose my job, I don't have faith in myself to go and get another job, or maybe I can aspire to be something more than just this person that's getting money for my family to sustain.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure when you were younger, I had 4 or 5 jobs and I wasn't getting paid what they do now.
No, I look at like even the McDonald's pay and I'm like, holy cow.
Oh, I would have been a millionaire by now.
I had to do hard manual labor. I had a paper route when I was 11 to 12. I think it was like $5 an hour.
Oh, yeah.
And it was 363 mornings a year at 5 a.m.
Yeah. And that's like the mailman, wind, snow, rain.
Yeah. And then manual labor I did somewhat in high school, college, was a laborer for a mason. $10 an hour cash. Yeah, that sucked. That was actually a great learning lesson as to I do not want to do anything related to that ever in my life.
Oh, yeah.
So, I didn't finish college, but I went in to have a sales career and then a leadership career. So I didn't need that 4-year degree like some might, but I sure as hell knew I didn't want to be a mason, a laborer for a mason, or
sense.
hauling brick and mud and all that different stuff. So, you learn these things over time, and what the people are getting paid now to do jobs, and they don't even show up and don't have any, passion around it, it's concerning.
And how do you be a leader in that point? That's what, I mean, that's the crazy thing. Think of these managers and these leaders in these companies where literally people are coming for paychecks of, hey, if you can give me $20 an hour, I'll work. It's like, it's not, hey, I'd love to do this with this company. It's now like, oh, who can pay me the most?
Yeah. Well, yeah, there's two different things there I think that we could get into. One is you should be, if you're the employee, looking for a leader that can make you a better person.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So you should be looking for a culture and a company and a leader that can make you a better person, that's going to help elevate you to the next level. The flip side of that is employers have to be creating a culture that attracts people that want that.
Yes.
Because if you're just creating a culture that just wants employees that are going to work for $20 an hour or $60,000 a year,
right, and
that's it, your culture's going to suffer. You're going to have constant turnover, and you're always going to be looking for people, and you're going to be frustrated by the spin cycle. Right. So two different things on that, but it's good. I want to get into some of the mental strength and pivot to mental health. You talked briefly about it, but it's a big passion of mine as well. So we've been using the phrase mental strength, obviously, with the Ironmans. The mental health aspect, you're a PTSD survivor. So tell us about your daily battle and what the importance of save yourself first means to you in life and business.
In the fire service, we always say save yourself first. I mean, we have special teams, RIT teams that come in if a downed firefighter, but you have to have your skills to be able to get yourself to a position where you can be saved. And I think it equates so well to mental health and everybody, because providing those tools takes time, takes willingness, and takes effort.
Yeah. And
those three things we all have. It's not something that you have to create. It's something that we have. And for me, with my PTSD, for so many years, I didn't know that. I didn't want to be tagged with that line. You have PTSD, you have depression.
Didn't want to be labeled.
Yeah, I didn't want to. It was, you're weak, and I'm still in the fire service. So what are people going to think? Are they going to want to be saved by somebody who has depression and all this other stuff? And for me, it's a daily battle. I got really good at hiding it. I got so good at hiding it, whether it be drinking or sleeping too much or doing so much work that I never had to think about anything. That was damaging, but I didn't know what I was doing.
They were all Band-Aids too.
Oh, completely. It's like, it's not even a good Band-Aid. It's like duct tape. Yeah.
There's a lot of uses for duct tape.
There's a lot of uses. Yeah. But when it comes off, it's terrible.
Yeah.
And I always correlated PTSD. And this is the analogy I always give is, think about it like boxes that you have a closet, right? You have a closet as your mind, and every traumatic incident or incident that really shakes your mindset is a box. And not all of them are the same shape. They could be round, they could be square, they could be, oblong. And when you're young in the fire service, you just throw the box in the closet and you just keep accumulating boxes, but you never stacked them. You never organized them. You never understood what they mean. So now when I get later in my career, every time I open that door, all those boxes fall back on me. So that's all the past injuries, the past traumas, everything like that. Now I've started to learn how to stack those boxes so that when I open that door, when something new happens, it's not the same 5 boxes that are hitting me in the face that I didn't deal with and didn't understand.
And I bet that when you open that closet and those boxes fall out and you don't know how to organize, it can feel really overwhelming.
It's extremely overwhelming. And I've had really, really, really dark moments in my life. And it's always hard to be vulnerable. Because you just feel, everybody puts you get a Guinness World Record. Everybody puts you on this pedestal. But I'm no different than anybody else. I don't have like an inordinate amount of mental strength or anything like that. I have just normal mental strength from what I've done. And mental health is so critical. And I hope that it doesn't become like a fad, like everything else does, that, hey, we're going to work on it for a little bit. This is something that has to happen every single day. And for me, I have to identify where I'm at every single day for my mental health, to help my family so that they're not walking on eggshells, for me, so that if I need something more, if I need more fitness, get out and walk. I've sat out in the sun during the summer, unbelievable benefits. but I have to identify that. I can't just hide it from it. I can't just make it as an excuse.
Identify it on a daily, I would assume.
Daily. Exactly. I mean, it's no different than my to-do list to, you know, get milk, get eggs, whatever it is. It's okay. How do I feel today? Is something bothering me today? And then the last one is, what can I do today to make myself feel better? Because I always get out of bed about a 70% of my, you know, most of my, I've never been 100%. I don't know what that means anymore. My days are always challenging, but I can get through them. I've learned how to do that, but it's always checking in with myself.
You've built coping mechanisms. You've built ways to overcome those.
Right.
And I think that's where most people need to get. A couple things you said there. So I think about the airplane analogy when the oxygen masks drop. They always say, put it on yourself first, because if you're passed out, you're no use to anyone next to you.
Right.
All right. So that's very similar to how you're representing mental health and making sure you take care of yourself. Secondly, I just think about how you've overcome some of this stuff and just how a daily grind it is for people. Right. And I think that, like you said, I hope it's not a fad either, because we are talking about men being able to speak up like yourself.
Right.
Manly men.
Manly men, like, yeah.
This is not something you or I grew up with. Our parents grew up with, our grandparents grew up with. So when I've confronted my dad about some of the emotional scars that he's left with me, right, and say, you know, I told him, like, up till about 20 years old, I think I could count on one hand how many times he told me he loved me. Now, he and I, so I always been careful to say, like, we have a good relationship and he's a great father. But that was one thing that I learned to not need approval because I didn't get it.
Wow.
Now, I have to be very careful because I'm raising 3 daughters and a son, and I have a wife, and
it's a different world.
I have employees and stuff that need validation, need approval, need me to tell them that I love them and they're doing a good job.
Right.
And to validate. So me learning not to need it, like, I have to now consciously do that. But as I've confronted him about that stuff, he said, you know, well, where do you think, you know, I didn't get it either.
Right. It was
a learned behavior.
Yes. So
I love some of the conversations out there. Jason Wilson, who teaches martial arts to young kids, and he had a viral video of a kid that was crying, and him telling, and you've probably seen the video, and he's telling him that it's basically okay, and where he's asking him questions as to why he's crying and all this different stuff. Oh, it's such a powerful video. Yeah. And he does all this teaching through martial arts, but, like, it is our job to break generational curses.
You hit that on the head. Yeah.
So from my dad, and now my dad is actually very good at telling me he loves me now. He's very good at telling, like, and I think maybe that comes from now having grandkids and he's a marshmallow, but but either way. So, like, but again, I don't blame him for any of that, because that's how he was brought up.
Right.
But it is now our responsibility to recognize those patterns and break them and head them off.
Right.
So if you have mental health issues, and taking care of yourself first, because otherwise you're going to pass them on.
Right.
Right. You're going to create your trauma for your own kids. You're going to create trauma for your own spouse based on your behaviors.
That's so true.
And a lot of it, like you said early on in your, reckoning with it, is you didn't know. No. You don't even know.
You don't know. I mean, the Spartan helmet, it's that exact thing of we are all wearing that helmet. We're all wearing that protective helmet, and we're learning how to fight with it. But we also have to learn how to take it off and be that person without that fight. Be that person without that fear that you're going to get struck down when you don't have it on.
Yeah.
And it's a hard thing, and it's a fine balance. How did you feel like when you told your dad the first time that had to be? It
was a very uncomfortable conversation.
It had to be the worst.
I can't imagine. One of those things, I think, where I got to the point of getting so sick and tired of being so sick and tired.
Yeah.
Which you hope that people don't have to get to that point. To have, but those conversations aren't easy.
No,
especially with someone that you've loved and admired your whole life.
When you don't know what they're gonna. I mean, you know that they're gonna love you, but it's at the same point, it's like
their reaction could be very defensive, and like then hopefully that's not the case, but it could have been.
Totally could have been different.
So those are, I've learned over time to have courageous conversations. Like part of my career as a salesperson, as an advisor, as a leader, like you're taught to have courageous conversations. I don't think many careers are that do that well. But it's something that is a learned skill. Right. And once you actually realize that the elephant in the room only gets bigger. It only gets bigger. And by the way, elephants are massive for a reason. So when you have an elephant in the room, the presence is felt on all parties. Yeah. And then you don't talk about it.
Whether you look at it or not.
Yeah, whether you want to look next to you and see that big ass elephant or not. It's there. Yeah. And you feel it. So my thing is I'm going to attack the elephant in the room as quickly as possible is what I've learned. So I'm encouraging everyone, once you have that realization that the elephant only grows bigger, the longer you push away that argument or that conversation or that difficult conversation or that truth-telling moment, whatever you want to call it, the longer you push that away, it's only going to get bigger. So the sooner you can recognize that, just get it out right away. Right. Like I'll actually say, hey, Rob, there's actually been this like kind of elephant in the room between us. And I just want to get I would rather attack that now versus it growing into a bigger thing and our relationship being harmed. Right. And that's that disarms completely the person next to you. Right? Like, you know what? I'm glad you said something because I've been feeling it too. Yeah.
And that's, we were talking before we got on about that tolerant conversation, that tolerant debate. And it kind of goes to that respect of like, when we're so worried about when we say something that is different or say something that we feel is not, won't be accepted, that we won't say it. You worry more about the repercussions of not being right or them not saying that it's okay to be quiet. It's like, that's not the way to go. It's like, don't worry about somebody saying that, agreeing with you. Don't worry about somebody saying that what you're saying is right or makes sense or can happen. It's like, just say it. Yeah. Have confidence. That's that faith in yourself over the fears that surround you. Have faith that it's okay. That's fine. If you don't believe me, I can't. I'm not going to make you believe it.
Yeah. And last thing I'll say on that is for someone that may be listening to this little dialogue here and kind of resonating with it, start small. Oh, yes. You can start small, but like before you tackle those big conversations, I just thought of like, hey, I've been meaning to tell you this, but on Tuesdays and Thursdays after you go to work out, you really stink. I mean, that might be
like the smallest thing. Yeah,
it might be the smallest thing with your spouse or something like that. Like, hey, before you kiss me, could you shower? Yeah. I'm just trying to think of something really small before you like go to someone's like emotional ethos. That's like, hey, this one thing you do really hurts my feelings, and it's really hard for me to tell you this. Right. But when you ignore me, when I say this hurts me, like that hurts me further to a deeper level where I don't know if I can trust. Like that's a bigger conversation.
A big step. Yeah.
That's a big step in vulnerability. So start with something small, see how they react, start like
how you can counteract and everything like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So that'll be my last piece of advice on that. Let's switch gears a little bit because going into some of your coaching, you talked through and asked the question, who is leading your daily actions and decisions? Mm-hmm. And I'm a big person and believer about intentionality with everything that we do. So what is that importance of that question to you and how you're leading people, or maybe how you're leading yourself?
Yeah, that's the hard part. It's like you kind of like what I was talking about before with when you think about leading yourself daily. A lot of us lead ourselves daily by other people's opinions, by other people's intentions or their limited beliefs. And that is, for lack of a better, that's how our society has been created. Yeah. You know, we have leaders and we have followers and we have workers. It's different. And that's why I love they have the Spartan, but every single one of them was a leader. So that if the leader in front of them fell down in the fight, you still had a leader that you knew you could follow. But if I'm fighting three people on the side, I'm still a leader of this little battle over here. Yeah. And making sure that people understand that every single day of their life, they are leading their life. You're not living your life, you're leading your life. Yes. If you're just living your life, that means that you don't really have
You're
any
letting
ambition.
it happen to you.
Exactly. Yeah. So,
and then you're constantly the victim. Weird how that happens.
Isn't that crazy? Isn't that crazy? And because of somebody else's ideas or somebody else's outcomes, it's like your outcomes in life are led by you. No matter what happens, if somebody else gave you some bad advice, well, you took that advice and put it into action. So what does that account to? Well, take ownership of your life and ownership of your decisions that you made, because that's what our life is about. So making sure that people understand that they are leading their life is huge.
Really key point on that, really key, is reflection.
Oh, yeah.
Right. Yep. So if you chose to take someone else's advice and you let that happen, they influenced you to do something. Mm-hmm. Instead of playing the victim and say, well, Rob told me to do this, I did it, it went wrong.
Yeah.
That may be true. Rob all those facts actually were true.
They're true. But
however,
that's what the
you chose to follow that advice, implement that action, and it went wrong. So the lesson could be, I'm not going to listen to Rob anymore because he led me astray. Right. Or in that instance, he led me astray. My gut told me this, I should have followed my gut. So next time I'm in this situation, I'm going to follow my gut. But you don't get to that point without reflection.
Right.
If you sit there in victimhood and say, Rob told me this, bad advice, that's why my life is bad now, it's all Rob's fault. Right. You will never get out of that.
You'll never get out of that. And you know what? Even a step farther on that, when you put it like, so say I go, hey, you should do a race in full fire gear. This is how you do it. Does that make any sense for me to give you advice on the little things to do for that race? Because you're different than I am. And so when you fail at what somebody else told you to do, maybe you didn't put it into your own terms. Mm-hmm. Maybe you didn't put it into your own, understand your own leadership, understand your own. Yes, like, exactly.
Did you assess your values with that relationship?
Does it align?
Yeah. Does it align?
Yeah. And that's a huge thing that people don't understand. I mean, the Guinness Book of World Records is funny because it's like, I mean, you have everybody from growing long nails to all these other things, but it's like the people that have those records at that moment, they led their lives so that they could get that.
Yeah.
They had the values. Why did nobody else get it? Well, because maybe that wasn't in their plan, or maybe they just didn't have the ability to change what the objective was, the world record, to be able to do a fit to their skill set.
Yeah, that's really good. Really good. So we were talking about this this leads us into our next question it's one thing to lead yourself and another to lead others. So let's dig into how leaders with a strong mindset have an advantage over those lacking a mentally strong mindset.
The mentally strong mindset, and I always go back to it's individual, because there's a lot of people out there that talk about mental strength and mental mindsets and all this other stuff, but it's so individual and giving people tools to be able to adapt to situations. So when you're a leader, it's so powerful to understand what your ability is to not only make yourself successful, but how to adapt that success structure to other people who you may not have ever associated with, or may not ever know how they got to where they are, but how you can translate that into a leadership style, a leadership communication. Having that strong elite mindset, that mentally strong mindset, gives you the courage to try and fail and then succeed. And that's how you actually start to understand, to be a better leader, I need to try different things. So what made me successful may not make you successful, but let's take those little pieces. I always say for my foundation, we have an acronym called SMILE. It's simple moments impact lives every day.
That's cool.
So when you think about that from a standpoint of leadership and a mindset, like you were saying earlier, small steps, small things. And that's going to be with every single employee. Oh, and everybody, all the managers are going, oh my God, that's going to be so tedious. But think about like the major companies that have been very successful. What have they done? They've made it important to individualize those employees, not make them, employee 101, 102, 103, 104, but they've made them Janet, Josh, Rob, they've made those employees personal, and all the things that come with it, the benefits have applied to what that person is, not to, generally people like this. Yeah. So it's so important for an elite mindset to have that belief in yourself and that understanding of yourself so that you can translate that into other leaders.
Really good advice. Love the SMILE analogy or acronym, I should say. And the thing that it made me think about was not only your Ironman feats, but whether it's 75 hard, whether it's physique competition, right, or whatever it might be in the fitness world. The reason people, I feel like, are drawn to that, and once people get into that elite feat of right, whether it's completing 75, whether it's doing an Ironman, whether it's doing a Tough Mudder, they have a different mindset coming out of it. Because I feel like when you finally see what you have power over, what you can do with your body.
That's so true. Yeah.
You realize that you can do all of that with your mind. Mm-hmm. And obviously you're building your some real mental fortitude as you're doing these feats, whether it's getting your body to a peak level competition for Ironman or for a physique competition and having basically zero body fat.
Right.
Once you realize what you can do with your body and completely transform your body to your will, right, you realize you can do that with your mind and replicate that into everything else in your life.
Oh, it's so true. You hit it on the head. It's like once, and the one thing, and this is, one of the guys, he was teaching me about meditation one time, and he was a Navy SEAL, kind of the oddest thing. He became a meditation coach after he was a commander of the Navy SEALs. One thing, we were doing the meditation, and in the middle of the meditation, he goes, if your mind drifted, it's okay. Start back and come back in. And that I have terrible memory, but that moment is stuck in my mind because it was so powerful of a statement to go, if you just veered a little off, it's all right. Come back in. How often in our work, personal life, if you veer off, it's like, oh my God, I'm going to hit the deer. I'm going to hit the tree. I can't get back on the road. How do I do this? We freak out so much instead of just saying, okay, it's fine. I'm a little off course, but I can get back on course.
Or I missed a day working out and I promised myself, so the whole year's shot, my January resolution.
Oh my God, that's so true. Yeah.
Right. Versus, so having the mindset of never miss twice.
Yeah.
Right. So, okay, I missed once.
Yep.
Whatever happened that day, let it go. Get back on track the next day. Instead of going, my goal was to work out 365 days in the year. I just missed that because whatever happened that day. So I might as well not do the rest of the year.
Right. Can you
or just do 364 days and you're going to be in way better shape had you stuck with it.
Yeah. I mean, it's almost a twofold. It's like some people are worried about being too successful because they don't know what's next, or they don't know what they can do. How do I sustain this? This is above what I was ever at before.
Fear of success. I think actually a fear of success is more popular than fear of failure.
The fear of failure, yeah.
And oftentimes people confuse fear of failure for fear of success, or vice versa. So I think fear of success is far more prevalent. People don't ever go down that path in their mind. Is like, what if I do hit this and I crush this? What does that mean? That's a good question. So when you did the first Ironman, you did it, like repeating championships, going to do the second one. Yeah. What mental hurdles did you overcome there? Because you already did it. You already did it in your fire gear. Mm-hmm. So how many times on that bike or run when you're just in pain,
do I want to quit?
Why the hell am I doing this? Because I already proved I could do it once.
Right. There was so many times that I wanted to quit, and it was my dad and my mom were always there, and my wife came and my kids came a lot. And the thought process that always would go through my mind is, well, did all the firefighters that ran to the trade tower, it's 343, did they stop? Mm-hmm. What would my kids feel if I don't even get to the run portion? That's a reason a lot of people come out to watch me.
It's to get in that fire gear.
It's to get in that fire gear and see me on the run. I mean, I was in Taupo, New Zealand. I did a full Ironman there, and I was like, nobody's going to know me here. You know, it's great. I enjoy it. And they brought me out there. It was crazy. There was kids with signs, "Go Fireman Rob." I don't know anybody in Taupo. I haven't been there ever, but it was so cool. And then the Maori, which are the native people to New Zealand, it was unbelievable. And like, actually,
if they did a haka I would get hyped.
They did before the race. So before the race, I was just sitting there going, "Oh my God, this is amazing!" Yeah, it was just. I mean, it was. That's mana is one of the things that they talk about, and you know, it was kind of going off base, but I always stop at all the volunteer banquets afterwards because there's no way you finish support. Yeah, there's no way you finish anything in life without support. But I'd always go and speak at the volunteer banquets, and the one in New Zealand was amazing. I mean, there's like 5,000-6,000 people in there, volunteers. And I got up there to speak. And before I even spoke, I got a standing ovation. I'm like, oh boy, setting myself up here.
Probably emotional.
Yeah, it was emotional. And I hadn't done a race in a while. That was 2019. And my dad passed in June of 2019. So I had planned this race, and I had a bunch of races I was going to plan in 19, but I ended up only doing 2. But after they have it's the head of the Maori, the tribe there, she came up, and what they do is it's exchanging the breath, and they put forehead to forehead. And one of the people that was with her says, "Is that okay if we do that?" It was the most powerful thing I've ever experienced. Like, it was just silence and your forehead to forehead, and it's just the
eyes
power.
Closed or open by
closed. Okay. And it's just like,
so it's feeling each other's energy.
Yeah, it's breathing in each other's. I mean, it was just, it's amazing. But that, like I always say, simple things. Like, I could have quit on that race, like you were talking about before. I could have. I mean, I was in pain that whole time. But at the end of the day, I finished. I created a power, and then received it back. And that's so powerful for people to see, is like that fear of success, of being on the top, should never deter you, because the only person that you will have to be responsible for is yourself. You know, earning respect and losing respect can happen in a minute. I mean, we see that in society nowadays.
Cancel culture makes it happen real quick.
Exactly. But it's so powerful when you succeed. What did it do for you, and how can you translate that, not through words, but through your daily actions to other people? That's success.
Yes.
That's value.
Yes. It's impact.
Exactly. And that's where, I mean, I've changed my life from that respect. I always worried when I went and did speeches. I was always so fearful. I'd look out in the audience and I'd be like, "Oh my God, that person doesn't look like they're interested. Oh my God, that one doesn't look like they're excited about what I just told her. They're not laughing." And then I got to a point where I'm like, I'm not trying to impact the whole, I'm trying to impact one person. Even if I don't impact one person, that's fine. But I always say at the beginning of my speeches, I always say, you know what? I'm not here to change your life. I'm not here to give you a magic pill. If you fall asleep, great. That means you needed it, and I did that for you.
A little self-deprecation.
Exactly. So, yeah.
Oh, that's good. And that's a great lesson for anyone looking to become a speaker as well. You and I both done a lot of it, you more than me, but man, you're not going to please everyone in the audience. No. You're not. So to go in with that saying, "I'm going to impact everyone here. I'm going to ramp everyone here is going to leave with so much energy." I mean, even the best speakers in the world don't do that. No. And whether Ed Milet, like we talked about, you know, Eric Thomas. I mean, Eric Thomas has the most energy of any dude out there. Insane. And even him, people are like, "Yeah, but he's yelling the whole time."
You're like, oh,
you were missing the point of his conversation.
Did you hear the words?
Yeah. So, all right, great point. So last thing before we wrap up, I want to touch one very important mission in your life and business, Uncaged, the Warrior. Mm-hmm. Share more about your role in that, the mission and the vision of the initiative.
So yeah, I'm working with a guy named Chris Rangel, and it was his vision for that. It's a men's course, men building men. And it's so valuable to have that nowadays, because being able to be yourself as a man, you know, it's hard. It's very hard. We have many different hats. We have many different roles, and the definition of what we can be is so it's skewed. And Chris has been in the martial arts field forever. He's actually the kickboxing Team USA head coach for kickboxing. He has a Wrangle Martial Arts, and he does so many great things. And he has pillars for this Uncaged the Warrior program that he does, and it's a weekend, and he has different UFC fighters that he's friends with. He has many different great mixed martial arts individuals, and it's really teaching men about how to identify themselves, how to create a stronger belief in who they are as a man, to be able to translate that into their lives. And it's physical breakdown, but also a mental breakdown, to be able to build them back up into the strong man that they are.
Yeah.
And so it's a really cool program. Actually, we're launching it in 2023. And it's just going to be one of those
here locally.
It's actually going to be throughout the country. Nice. So Chris is out of Kansas. He's down there. He has his ultimate martial arts down there. And so we're going to travel to different places. And there's a few UFC fighters that have been kind enough to offer their ranches at certain times. So it's something that's going to be really fun.
That's cool. Let me know how I can help with that.
Yeah,
like
definitely.
Awesome
Definitely.
It's so needed. I talk a lot about alpha vulnerability.
Yeah.
And that you can be both.
You can be both.
Yeah. And that was just a little bit with my story with my dad, and we're both type A alpha males and butted heads a lot. I know you got some teenagers, so I was a problematic teenager for him. But mainly it was like learning how to be a man, learning how to self-accept, learning how to forge my own path in this world, which all of us go through. And one of our core tenets as men is to be a provider.
Right.
And, it's all, I've told some young women that I've coached over the years as well, is that, women have this biological clock. Mm-hmm. Men have a financial clock. They have a clock. I learned this from Steve Harvey. I listened to it and I was like, man, that is so true. It's about the core tenet, primal thing of being a provider.
Oh my gosh.
A man's not going to propose until he feels like he can provide a lifestyle that is worthy for that bride or their future family.
Wow.
And so it's learning how to be a man in this current society, especially as men are just continually getting beat over the head with we're not good enough and toxic masculinity and we're the problem and all this jazz. Like, imagine, I can imagine. So like now you and I in our 40s, like we're like, okay, we can handle that. We can handle, we get what you're saying.
Yeah.
And part of what you're saying is wrong. But imagine a 16 through 20-year-old or 16 through 25-year-old that's forming these thoughts and forming their opinions on who they are. And a man's brain, neuroscience-wise, it doubles. So women, this is where women mature much faster than men. And what I've learned through my neuroscientist business partner is men's brains fundamentally change. Like the amount that they change from 0 to 18 and the amount that they change from 19 to 30 is the exact same amount.
Wow.
So our brains are fully forming until age 30 as men, whereas women's, I think, fully formed by like age 23 or 4.
That's a huge difference.
And think about what our society is now telling our young men. And now with the COVID lockdowns and the rise in suicide rates and rise in depression and all this different stuff, like what that mission is for that and what we're trying to build here as well, man, it is needed.
It's so needed. And I think the hardest part for me with all of this is there's such a functionality of generalization. And people are like saying, generally, these people are bad, or generally, these people are mean and all this other stuff. And I would love for us to get to the point of going, we're human beings. We're individuals.
Yeah.
Don't lump me in with my color, with my gender, with my sex, or my religion, my job, any of that stuff. None of that stuff is me.
Yeah. There might be a small part that's true of that. You can't put, it's so funny because it's hypocritical because none of them want to be labeled.
Yeah.
But then they're labeling. And so it's just the dichotomy of the world we live in. But what you're doing with that program, starting next year, man. That sounds awesome.
Yeah.
If we need to use the horse facilities here.
I love it. I love it. But yeah, we'll get some mixed martial arts going in the horse facilities. That could be like what is that? Broken Skull Ranch.
Yeah.
There you go.
Well, the Lone Survivor Foundation utilizes horse therapy and equine therapy as well. But even if we didn't have the horses in there, there's 12,000 square footage of some fun space to hack it up.
I love
All right,
it.
brother. It's been a pleasure to have you.
Awesome to have you. That's so much fun to be on.
Yeah. I hope everyone learned today. I know you did. So please share this episode, whether it's the video on YouTube, if you're watching us, whether it's audio, Apple, Spotify, whatever platform you're listening, please share the episode. That's the only way we grow, and it's the only way we share are able to impact as many people as possible. So until next time, remember, good and great are the enemies of possible. Lead like a Spartan today.